here I am, the Overdrive tier list. Let's just jump right into things. Soul Bad Guy. Soul Bad Guy has a unique overdrive. The general purpose of your overdrive, it costs all your tension. It does significant damage to servants usually. You're expecting a kill with the lower end overdrives, maybe like 2, with the higher end ones maybe like 4. Souls is a bit odd. In that it does a lot of guard damage. It does a lot of damage in general, so it's very strong against masters. But against servants, it is not bad. It's just inconsistent. It's easy to get hit out of it. You lose all your tension the moment you hit the buttons, and that can be catastrophic. Except not really, because you're playing Soul, but you can easily just lose all your tension for nothing. It happens a lot. Or you only do the first hit, and the first hit does basically nothing. Like, you don't care about the first hit. It's the second hit that you're looking for. It does more damage and hits in a very wide radius around him. And sometimes you can just hit like all the units around you and just own like 5-6 units. It's kind of powerful, but sometimes you just get hit out of it and you kill one guy and that's it for all your tension bar. That's not very good. For that reason, I don't know about S tier, but it almost feels S tier because it does work. Like, it's not like it doesn't work, you know. And the uses it has versus enemy masters is quite valuable. I kind of lean towards S tier. I think it does depend on the matchup too, because when you're fighting like Raven, Val, Candy just interrupt it so consistently, but the other units don't interrupt it nearly as consistently. Just definitely depends on the situation. Sometimes it's just not worth trying because you will just lose all your tension, almost guaranteed. But I think S feels fair enough. Probably, debatably A. Next is Sin. Sin is not debatably A. Okay? Sin is debatably terrible. I think C, because if you are in a... How it works is it's kind of like Ride the Lightning, but spread across 3 hits. Each hit is not as strong, but you get 3 of them. Sounds good, right? Until you realize it's kind of impossible to connect all 3 hits. You're using against like 3 guys. You hit them all with the first hit, OTG them with the 3rd hit usually. The 2nd hit just completely whiffs, which is catastrophic. Or use it on a big group. You hit 1 hit, then you tend to like whiff the other hits, and it doesn't work out very well. When it does work out, what can happen is you can either finish off a bunch of low health enemies. That can be very valuable, but you can like, the hit stop can allow you to actually combo the hits, and when it does that, that is quite valuable. But usually it's still only comboing 2 hits, but even with 2 hits, it's okay, I guess. Especially for Sin, though, he has so many better options and so many other ways he wants to use tension that I'm just not a fan. I'm kind of a hater. I don't really like his overdrive. I think it's kind of atrocious. Definitely one of the worst overdrives in the game. There's no question about that. How bad is kind of debatable. At the very, very minimum, I think the one spot where I can say is for sure probably optimal is when you're at your Master Ghost, because then you get the tension back very quickly, and that sometimes there can be really big groups, and that can, you know, that can get stuff done. That can get stuff done. Izuna's is a great overdrive. I am a big fan. I'm a big fan. I think S tier. Some people would probably put an A, I think this might be slightly controversial to put Izuna this high. I don't know if I'm crazy. I think he might have the best overdrive in the game, Izuna. There's an obvious other contender, which, well, you know, we'll get there. And I think I'll talk about the 2 of them together, because they kind of have like a... They're both very good, so I almost feel like you ought to just compare them. Same with Soul. Like, you just compare the top 3. That's what I think I'll do. Raven's overdrive's okay. I don't know why I'm skipping the... Oh yeah, I'm skipping Paradigm because this is weird. And Valentine's is pretty atrocious. I'll get there. Raven's is okay, though. I think Valentine's definitely got the worst one. I don't think that's much of a competition. I do kind of feel like there is a bit of a gap. I'll just put an A, just because it's kind of like Souls. It's very inconsistent, but when it works, but not really. I think it's like more consistent than Souls, right? But the reward is not as high. Like Souls can easily kill 5 units when it works. Ravens, you're very lucky to get 4. I think Raven is killing like 2 usually, 3 max usually. You can get 4. Um, I'm happy to kill 2 with it usually. Um, and it's punishable. He goes into recovery. That's another downside. Souls hardly ever relevant, but does exist. Some of the better overdrives, Sins is one of them. Valentine's is kind of one of them. The best overdrives is also. I mean, Kai's right there. He is. Yeah. His is not very punishable. But before we talk about these 3, let me talk about Valentine's. So hopefully it's clear. Like Ravens just doesn't kill that many units. Inconsistent, kind of finicky. Sometimes kills 1 unit. Not very good against masters. I'll get into these 3. Valentine's is kind of atrocious. I feel like. Valentine has great serving clear, so you're kind of like steep competition. You know, like kind of the same thing with Soul. That's part of why Souls is not like that good, because you kind of just insta kill the units anyway, right? And Valentine, I don't know, it's just super inconsistent. Sometimes it just like does a lot of damage, but sometimes it does nothing because the units, they can just fall out, right? Like this is the one where it's like the kind of fiery field in front of her, and it's just so easy for units to just fall out. And players, like I've been hit by this overdrive, been like, fuck, I'm gonna take a ton of damage, and then took nothing because I just fell out. And I don't know, you just don't want to bank all your attention on something so inconsistent. Kind of the same issue with Sin. I think Ravens is quite good though. And then Paradigms is obviously unique. It's the only one that doesn't work really. It doesn't kill serpents, right? Paradigm probably prefers his overdrive though to any of the others, because his assistant volume is basically an overdrive in a can. Very strong. I don't really know if it's A or S tier, but it's definitely good. I'm gonna put an A just because like A is lonely. I don't think it's quite as good as the S tiers, at least most of the time. It does a lot. Maybe I undervalue this, maybe. It's true. But at the very minimum, I can tell you this is a great overdrive, right? It basically just creates an elite on the field, is how I think of it. And so when you bring an elite into a fight, you basically just win it. Like, there's nothing your opponent can really do. The downside is that it doesn't clear servants, and it does cost all your tension on a character who likes to have tension a lot. That is a downside for sure. And it is kind of slow, so you can't just pop it in front of the enemy master. Obviously, the diabolical strat, the common one, is to drop in front of the Master Ghost. Kind of just forces your opponent to go over there and waste time. The most optimal response, I think, is just to pick up your units, which is crazy. The overdrive, it gets really bulky if it will take away Paradigm's health to generate a shield around it. That will make it makes it very tricky to kill. And frankly, it's quite good, but it's kind of situational, right? You can't just use it. You know, you have to use it in a reasonable position. I kind of feel like I prefer, because like this wins a fight, but think about this. Usually if you get a good overdrive off with one of these characters, you kind of also just win the fight. Especially Kai. So let's talk about the top 3 here. Debatable. I think Soul's probably the least, like, you could debate like this kind of thing, but I'm gonna put him here. I think out of the top 3, there's kind of like a, you know, upsides and downsides to all of them. I already kind of discussed Soul, so let's talk about Izuna and Kai. Izuna's is like kind of just objectively worse than Kai's, except it has one big advantage. And it's that I think it's a lot easier to set up. Because it just sits right in front of him, right? And like units just group in front of you. That's just how they work. Whereas Kaiser's in a straight line, and I feel like sometimes it just misses. I think what I really like about Izuna's is I think it is the most consistent overdrive. I think that is definitely the thing. Like Kai's, you can just kind of have everyone dodge it, and then you're kind of like, wait, I thought Kai was broken, and you hit nothing. Like, doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. Whereas Izuna's, that never happens because it hits like immediately, and it hits in a very like consistent range around him. Except for when they like just don't get hit by the second hit, but that is also kind of consistent. Like usually when it's behind him, Izuna's can pretty consistently kill 4 units. I guess that's kind of what it is about Izuna. That's kind of his overdrive is just good enough in every aspect, whereas Kai's is maybe a little overkill. I feel like, you know, like Kai's does more damage, but Izuna still one-shots all the melee units, which is the important benchmark I think with the overdrive. If you can one-shot basic melees, you're fine. As long as you can do that. It's another thing about souls. It does do more damage, but most of the time, that doesn't matter as much, right? So, like, it's good enough there. It usually can hit 4 units, 5 units if you're lucky. Kai's, sure, it could hit, like, 6 units, but, like, most of the time, you're only trying to hit 4 units, right? If your opponent lets you hit that many units, then that's kind of like a mistake on their behalf, I think. Right? Like, sometimes grouping up units is important and such. And it's good that Kai has a tool to punish that. Overdrive punishes that a lot. But, you know, your opponent could just not group their units. I mean, that kind of sounds like, oh, just don't. But it's true, right? And if they don't very much, then you're not really going to get value out of that. Whereas he's in a... Sure, he doesn't get to do that, but I think most of the time 4 units is like good enough, you know, especially if you use it like right at the start of the round trying to kill like 3 swordsmen. They're basically the same overdrive, you know, except Izuna's again just slightly more consistent. So I kind of like Izuna's. I think it is kind of my favorite overdrive. I think it's the strongest. I definitely think Kai's is better than Soul's. I think this is like the one place Soul is not the best character in the whole game. Is in overdrive. He's only like 3rd or debatably 4th best. Just because his downsides. Wow, what a character. The other major thing I want to note is that Izuna's is a lot more difficult to use in the middle of master fights, but it's also easier at the same time. It has recovery, a lot more recovery than Kai's. Kai's is basically unpunishable. I've never seen it get punished. They ride the lightning. Izuna's Laurel Edge. I mean, it's easy to punish, to be frank. It's very easy. And although usually I feel like if I'm hitting like 4 or 3 units, I'm pretty happy with that trade. Like, even if I die, I'm like, that's fine, you know? But, you know, with Kai, it is even better to be able to say, okay, I'm not even trading, I'm just blocking, you know? That's fine. But the thing about Izuna's is you can actually combo into it, as well as Souls. Like I said, Souls is great in MVM. You can actually do some nasty stuff with it. Kai's does not do anything against Masters. It does literally do damage, but it's usually not very strong. I don't really recommend using it. Izuna's you don't want to use against Masters, just to use against Masters, but what you can do is you can combo into it, and if you're around a bunch of servants, you'll hit all of them too, right? So that'll mean you can't get punished. They might burst out, but still you're not getting punished for that, you know? So I think hopefully that covers these couple overdrives. These ones, Kai's is probably the most important overdrive, I think, because it's basically like his best servant clear by a very, very long shot. You know, Izuna and Soul, they don't have to use it. Even though I think they both have great overdrives, they don't have to. They can just ignore it. Especially Soul's, like, it wins MVM. Guess who already wins MVM? Like, anything Soul does. And both these characters have great servant clear too, so they don't really care about that. Whereas Kai is kind of atrocious servant clear, but being able to just wipe out a bunch of units is very helpful, very handy. Paradigms is quite good. It's a little weird. I'm not 100% sure of this ranking. I definitely know it's good though. You could argue. I think if someone argued this was the best overdrive in the game, I wouldn't call them crazy. Paradigms. And yeah, Raven is just it's just not that good. It's just not able to kill as many as the top three. It doesn't have the utility of paradigms, and it's definitely useful though. Definitely use it often, especially because just like Kai, Raven's server clear is pretty atrocious, especially against multiple units. So if you're able to get a good overdrive, that will speed you up so much, right? Sin's is not very good. If you're new to Sin, I would ignore it. It's not very good 99% of the time. It will take you some time. It's like one of those kind of advanced things. Eventually you'll figure out situations where it's like, okay, this is maybe a choice. Even then, I don't know if you want to use it. Like, if someone good at Sin told me there's no situation where I want to use Overdrive, I'd probably believe them. But I personally think there's probably some situations where it's like the optimal play. Valentine's, I don't think you ever want to use it. I can't think of any reason it would be useful. Personally, if you're a fan of this Overdrive, I'd love to know why, because I don't think it's very good at all. I mean, definitely the worst Overdrive in the game to me. It's pretty clear, yeah, because these Overdrives up here are all, like, at least okay, and this one's just pretty atrocious. I might be undervaluing it, though. Valentine's definitely my least played character, and kind of the least played character in general, so I don't see the Overdrive very often. But I'm pretty sure it's bad. Most good players I've talked to also seem to agree it's quite bad, so... thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed, be sure, I don't know, to do what you want. I might do this in the future more. Just tier list. It's pretty easy to make, and you know I like talking about Overture. So thanks for watching.